It's horror comics. It's Wednesday. Let's get into it. Welcome back to ML Miller Frights. I'm ML Miller. Before we begin, please do me a favor and punch that like button down below. Share this video with all of your social media addicted pals. Click subscribe to this channel and ring that bell for notifications. Here's what's new in horror in comic shops this week, July 28th, 2021. Zombie Tramp number 81 from Action Lab Comics. It's got a story by Vince Hernandez with art by Marco Maccagni. She's trampy, she's booby. Who cares if one of her nipples is rotting away? She's the zombie tramp, and while it's easy to dunk on such an obviously cheesecakey comic book, I'm glad there are still books out there that combine horror and the sexy ladies. This issue has our titular character taking on villains from her future and her past. The last book you'll ever read is from Vault Comics. The story is by Cullen Bunn with art by Leila Leiz. It's another new Cullen Bunn number 1. The man who seems to be an endless comic book writing machine delivers a new horror comic from Vault. This one focuses on a writer who hires a detective to protect her on a book tour. The problem is that the book she has written causes apocalyptic doom to all who read it. Can the detective protect the writer without being tempted to read the book himself? Interesting premise. Might be tough to pull off, but Bunn's got the chops to do it. Lady Death, Treacherous Infamy number 1 is from Coffin Comics. The story is by Brian Pulido and Mike MacLean with art by Diego Bernard. I must admit, I have the first 10 years of Evil Ernie and Lady Death comics stored away somewhere in a little place I like to call Parts Unknown. While the character doesn't do it for me as much as it did in my formative years, she's an iconic character from the bygone era of the 90s. Kudos to Brian Pulido for being able to keep this character semi-alive and well after all these years. If you've never experienced Lady Death, I implore you to look past the excess skin shown and lack of clothing. This is Pulido's baby, and he still tells a mean and manly horror story with the character. Possessive number 1 is from Zenescope Entertainment. The story is by Hans Rodionoff and Adam F. Goldberg. While I don't know who's doing the art, Zenescope has a history of discovering talented artisans to bring their stories to life. This is an original horror comedy story about a man attempting to cope with living with his wife who happens to be possessed by the devil or demons or something like that. It looks to be a fun little horror series, and I can't wait to check this one out. Shadowman number 4 is from Valiant Comics. The story is by Cullen Bunn with art by John Davis Hunt. I'm a bit behind on Shadowman, but Bunn and Davis are doing sequential storytelling like few others, making each issue count in the grand scheme of things, but also never forgetting to make each issue stand alone as an exciting mix of horror and heroism. This is the best comic book Valiant is putting out at the moment, and worth your time if you're a fan of spooky heroics. Vinyl number 2 is from Image Comics. The story is by Doug Wagner with art by David Stewart. While I'm not sure I have been able to swallow the entire concept of this series from the gory and morbid first issue, Doug Wagner has me intrigued with his tasty mix of music and horror. I can't wait till this issue comes out, and hopefully some of my questions will be answered. Batman Reptilian number 2 is from DC Comics. The story is by Garth Ennis with art by Liam Sharp. While I believe this is a series looking at Killer Croc from a more horrific angle, I'm still not quite sure, as the first issue was very obtuse in who or what is behind all of the trouble in Batman's life. Batman is one of those characters that fits in most genres, but he's downright cozy in horror, especially with Garth Ennis providing the words and Liam Sharp doing some of the best-looking panels of his life. This one is highly recommended. Spawn number 320 is from Image Comics. The story is by Todd McFarlane, with art by Carlo Barberi. Above all else, Spawn has always been a horror title, and with this being part of the new push in the expansive Spawn universe, there's bound to be more devil dealings, brutal battles, and of course chains, guns, and capes. While Spawn hasn't really been my bag for ages, I'm tempted to check out this new relaunch to see what I've been missing, and what all the hubbub is all about. Something is Killing the Children, number 18, is from Boom Studios. The story is by James Tynion IV, with art by Werther, Dell, Edera. James Tynion IV can do no wrong, it seems, in comics these days. Something is Killing the Children is by far his most successful and most entertaining title of the bunch. This one delves into the secrets of the House of Slaughter, a monster hunting organization that has been in the background of this badass series, until now, that is. BRZRKR number 4 is from Boom Studios. The story is by Kindt and Keanu Reeves, with art by Garney. Is BRZRKR a horror series? It certainly has enough carnage and gore to qualify it, and if it was ever adapted into a movie, it certainly would be heavy on the blood and guts. This story of an immortal warrior attempting to piece together his long-lost history is a compelling and exciting action spectacle, soon to be made into a movie starring its creator, Keanu Reeves. The sheer amount of gruesome bloodletting will satisfy the comic ghoul inside of you. Think John Wick, but he uses his fists to punch holes in you instead of guns. And you've got the hit series BRZRKR. That's it this week in horror comics. Did you see any you'd like to try out? Tell me what you're going to get this week down in the comments section. That'll be it for today. Please chime in down below in the comments and let me know how on the nose or mind-numbingly wrong I am, or you can counter with your own review. So guys, you know how YouTube works. I'd love to be able to dedicate more time to this channel. I'm not monetized yet, so if you want to help me out, remember to hit all the pertinent bells and whistles down below. Want some spooky comics to read? I have 2 new horror comic book trade paperbacks you should look out for. Both Grave Trancers and Pirouette, collecting never-before-published issues, can be found in only the finest of comic book shops. If you're looking for written reviews, you can find them on my website, mlmillerwrites.com. If you really want to show your support, I also have a Patreon page at mlmiller. Look for the link to my Patreon page down below. Thank you so much for your time, and take care.
You're doomed to live the life you're meant to be, stuck inside your reality. You're